Okay, here we go, Lexi. We're going to do another Bible reading here. We left off with chapter 35 last time, so we're going to get right into chapter 36 here. I have no idea how far I'm going to get today, because my head's still pounding, so let's just see what we can do. Chapter 36, Edomite lists. These are the descendants of Esau, that is, Edom, or Edom. Esau took his wives from among the Canaanite women: Ada, daughter of Elon the Hittite; Oholibamah, the daughter of Anna, the son of Zibeon the Hivite; and Basemath, daughter of Ishmael and sister of Nebaioth. Ada bore Eliphaz to Esau; Basemath bore Reuel; and Oholibamah bore Jush, Jalam, and Korah. These are the sons of Esau, who were born to him in the land of Canaan. Esau took his wives, his sons, his daughters, and all the members of his household, as well as his livestock, all his cattle, and all the property he had acquired in the land of Canaan, and went to the land of Seir, away from his brother Jacob. Their possessions had become too great for them to dwell together, and the land in which they were residing could not support them because of their livestock. So Esau settled in the highlands of Seir. Esau is Edom. These are the descendants of Esau, ancestor of the Edomites, in the highlands of Seir. These are the names of the sons of Esau: Eliphaz, son of Ada, wife of Esau, and Reuel, son of Basemath, wife of Esau. The sons of Eliphaz were Teman, Omar, Zepho, Gatam, and Kenaz. Timnah was a concubine of Eliphaz, the son of Esau, and she bore Amalek to Eliphaz. These were the sons of Ada, the wife of Esau. These were the sons of Reuel: Nahath, Zerah, Shammah, and Mizah. These were the sons of Basemath, the wife of Esau. These were the sons of Esau's wife Oholibamah, the daughter of Anna, son of Zibeon, whom she bore to Esau: Jush, Jalam, and Korah. These are the clans of the sons of Esau: the sons of Eliphaz, Esau's firstborn, clans of Teman, Omar, Zepho, Kenaz, Korah, Gatam, and Amalek. These are the clans of Eliphaz in the land of Edom. They are the sons of Ada. These are the sons of Reuel, sons of Esau: the clans of Nahath, Zerah, Shammah, and Mizah. These are the clans of Reuel in the land of Edom. They are the sons of Basemath, wife of Esau. These were the sons of Oholibamah, wife of Esau: the clans of Jush, Jalam, and Korah. These are the clans of Esau's wife Oholibamah, daughter of Anna. These are the sons of Esau, that is Edom, according to their clans. These are the sons of Seir, Horite, the inhabitants of the land: Lotan, Shobal, Zibeon, Anna, Dishon, Ezer, and Dishan. Dishan and Dishan. Those two are pretty close. Those are the clans of the Horites, sons of Seir in the land of Edom. The sons of Lotan were Hori and Hemam, and Lotan's sister was Timnah. These are the sisters of Shobal: Alvan, Mahanath, Ebal, Shepho, and Onam. These are the sons of Zibeon: Aya and Anna. He is the Anna who found water in the desert while he was pasturing the donkeys of his father Zibeon. These are the children of Anna: Dishon and Oholibamah, daughter of Anna. These are the sons of Dishon: Hemdan, Eshban, Ithran, and Cheran. These are the sons of Ezer: Bilhan, Zaban, and Akan. These are the sons of Dishan: Uz and Aran. These are the clans of the Horites: the clans of Lotan, Shobal, Zibeon, Anna, Dishon, Ezer, and Dishan. These are the clans of the Horites, clan by clan, in the land of Seir. These are the kings who reigned in the land of Edom before any king reigned over the Israelites. Bela, son of Beor, became king in Edom. The name of his city was Dinhabah. When Bela died, Jobab, son of Zerah, from Basra, succeeded him as king. When Jobab died, Husham, from the land of the Temanites, succeeded him as king. When Husham died, Hadad, son of Badad, succeeded him as king. He is the one who defeated Midian in the country of Moab. The name of his city was Avith. When Hadad died, Samlah, from Masrekah, succeeded him as king. When Samlah died, Shaul, from Rehoboth on the river, succeeded him as king. When Shaul died, Baal-Hanan, son of Akbor, succeeded him as king. When Baal-Hanan, son of Akbor, died, Hadad succeeded him as king. The name of his city was Pau. His wife's name was Mehetabel, the daughter of Matred, son of Mezahabad. I'm getting so tongue-tied here. These are the names of the clans of Esau, identified according to their families and localities. The clans of Timnah, Alva, Jeheth, Oholibama, Elah, Pinon, Kenaz, Teman, Mibzar, Magdiel, and Iram. Those are the clans of the Edomites, according to their settlements in their territorial holdings, that is, of Esau, the ancestor of the Edomites. That's the end of chapter 36. That was a bit of a doozy. Chapter 37. This is a good story. This is the story of the Prince of Egypt, if you've seen that movie. Joseph sold... Actually, no, sorry, this is a different one. There was another movie, I can't remember what it's called. This is The Colorful Robe, Joseph. Different one, almost there, sorry. Chapter 37. Joseph sold into Egypt. Jacob settled in the land where his father had sojourned, the land of Canaan. This is the story of the family of Jacob. When Joseph was 17 years old, he was tending the flocks with his brothers. He was an assistant to the sons of his father's wives, Bilhah and Zilpah, and Joseph brought their father bad reports about them. Israel loved Joseph, best of all of his sons, for he was the child of his old age, and he had made him a long ornamented tunic. When his brothers saw that their father loved him best of all of his brothers, they hated him so much that they could not say a kind word to him. Once Joseph had a dream, and when he told his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. There we were, binding sheaves in the field, when suddenly my sheaf rose to an upright position, and your sheaves formed a ring around my sheaf and bowed down to it." His brothers said to him, "Are you really going to make yourself king over us? Will you rule over us?" So they hated him all the more because of his dreams and his reports. Then he had another dream and told it to his brothers. "Look, I had another dream," he said. "This time, the sun and the moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me." When he told it to his father and his brothers, his father reproved him and asked, "What is the meaning of this dream of yours? Can it be that I and your mother and your brothers are to come and bow to the ground before you?" So his brothers were furious at him, but his father kept the matter in mind. One day, when his brothers had gone to pasture their father's flocks at Shechem, Israel said to Joseph, "Are your brothers not tending our flocks at Shechem? Come, and I will send you to them." "I am ready," Joseph answered. "Go then," he replied. "See if all is well with your brothers and the flocks, and bring back word." So he sent him off from the valley of Hebron. When Joseph reached Shechem, a man came upon him as he was wandering about in the fields. "What are you looking for?" the man asked him. "I am looking for my brothers," he answered. "Please tell me where they are tending the flocks." The man told him, "They've moved on from here. In fact, I heard them say, 'Let us go on to Dothan.'" So Joseph went after his brothers and found them in Dothan. They saw him from a distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. They said to one another, "Here comes that dreamer. Come now, let us kill him and throw him into one of the cisterns here. We could say that a wild beast devoured him. We will see then what comes of his dreams." But when Reuben heard this, he tried to save him from their hands, saying, "We must not take his life." Then Reuben said, "Do not shed blood. Throw him into the cistern in the wilderness, but do not lay a hand on him." His purpose was to save him from their hands and restore him to his father. So when Joseph came up to his brothers, they stripped him of his tunic, the long ornamented tunic he had on. Then they took him and threw him into the cistern. The cistern was empty. There was no water in it. Then they sat down to eat. Looking up, they saw a great caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead, their camels laden with gum, balm, and resin to be taken down to Egypt. Judah said to his brothers, "What is to be gained by killing our brother and concealing his blood? Come, let us sell him to these Ishmaelites, instead of doing away with him ourselves. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh," his brothers agreed. Midianite traders passed by, and they pulled Joseph up out of the cistern. They sold Joseph for 20 pieces of silver to the Ishmaelites, who took him to Egypt. When Reuben went back to the cistern and saw that Joseph was not in it, he tore his garments. And returning to his brothers, he exclaimed, "The boy is gone, and I? Where can I turn?" They took Joseph's tunic, and after slaughtering a goat, dipped the tunic in its blood. They then sent someone to bring the long ornamented tunic to their father with the message, "We found this. See whether it is your son's tunic or not." He recognized it and exclaimed, "My son's tunic! A wild beast has devoured him. Joseph has been torn to pieces." Then Jacob tore his garments, put sackcloth on his loins, and mourned his son many days. Though his sons and daughters tried to console him, he refused all consolation, saying, "No, I will go down mourning to my son in Sheol." Thus did his father weep for him. The Midianites, meanwhile, sold Joseph in Egypt to Potiphar, an official of Pharaoh and his chief steward. End of 37. Chapter 38. Judah and Tamar. About that time, Judah went down, away from his brothers, and pitched his tent near a certain Adullamite named Hira. There Judah saw the daughter of a Canaanite named Shua. He married her, and had intercourse with her. She conceived and bore a son, whom she named Again she conceived and bore a son, whom she named Onan. Then she bore still another son, whom she named Shelah. She was in Chezib when she bore him. Judah got a wife named Tamar for his firstborn, But Judah's firstborn, greatly offended the Lord. So the Lord took his life. Then Judah said to Onan, "Have intercourse with your brother's wife, in fulfillment of your duty as brother-in-law, and thus preserve your brother's line." Onan, however, knew that the offspring would not be his. So whenever he had intercourse with his brother's wife, he wasted his seed on the ground to avoid giving offspring to his brother. What he did greatly offended the Lord, and the Lord took his life too. Then Judah said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, "Remain a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah grows up," for he feared that Shelah might also die like his brothers. So Tamar went to live in her father's house. Time passed, and the daughter of Shua, Judah's wife, died. After Judah completed the period of mourning, he went up to Timnah, to those who were shearing his sheep, in company with his friend Hira the Adullamite. Then Tamar was told, "Your father-in-law is on his way up to Timnah to shear his sheep." So she took off her widow's garments, covered herself with a shawl, and having wrapped herself, sat down at the entrance to Enim, which was on the way to Timnah. For she was aware that, although Shelah was now grown up, she had not been given to him in marriage. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a harlot, since she had covered her face. So he went over to her at the roadside and said, "Come, let me have intercourse with you," for he did not realize that she was his daughter-in-law. She replied, "What will you pay me for letting you have intercourse with me?" He answered, "I will send you a young goat from the flock." "Very well," she said, "provided you leave me with a pledge until you send it." Judah asked, "What pledge should I leave you?" She answered, "Your seal and cord, and the staff in your hand." So he gave them to her, and had intercourse with her, and she conceived by him. After she got up and went away, she took off her shawl, and put on her widow's garments again. Judah sent the young goat by his friend the Adullamite to recover the pledge from the woman, but he did not find her. So he asked the men of that place, "Where is the prostitute, the one by the roadside in Enim?" But they answered, "No prostitute has been here." He went back to Judah and told him, "I did not find her, and besides, the men of the place said, 'No prostitute has been here.'" "Let her keep the things," Judah replied, "otherwise we will become a laughingstock. After all, I did send her this young goat, but you did not find her." About 3 months later, Judah was told, "Your daughter-in-law Tamar has acted like a harlot, and now she is pregnant from her harlotry." Judah said, "Bring her out, let her be burned." But as she was being brought out, she sent word to her father-in-law, "It is by the man to whom these things belong that I am pregnant." Then she said, "See whose seal and cord and staff these are." Judah recognized them and said, "She is in the right rather than I, since I did not give her to my son Shelah." He had no further sexual relations with her. When the time of her delivery came, there were twins in her womb. While she was giving birth, one put out his hand, and the midwife took and tied a crimson thread on his hand, noting, "This one came out first." But as he withdrew his hand, his brother came out, and she said, "What a breach you've made for yourself." So he was called Perez. Afterward his brother, who had the crimson thread on his hand, came out. He was called Zerah. End of 38. Chapter 39. Joseph's temptation. When Joseph was taken down to Egypt, an Egyptian, Potiphar, an official of Pharaoh and his chief steward, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he enjoyed great success, and was assigned to the household of his Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him and brought him success in whatever he did, he favored Joseph and made him his personal attendant. He put him in charge of his household and entrusted to him all his possessions. From the moment he had put him in charge of his household and all his possessions, the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. The Lord's blessing was on everything he owned, both inside the house and out. Having left everything he owned in Joseph's charge, he gave no thought, with Joseph there, to anything but the food he ate. Now Joseph was well built and handsome. After a time, his master's wife looked at him with longing and said, "Lie with me." But he refused and said to his master's wife, "Look, as long as I am here, my master does not give a thought to anything in the house, but has entrusted to me all he owns. He has no more authority in this house than I do. He has withheld from me nothing but you, since you are his wife. How then could I do this great wrong and sin against God?" Although she spoke to him day after day, he would not agree to lie with her, or even be near her. One such day, when Joseph came into the house to do his work, and none of the household servants were then in the house, she laid hold of him by his cloak, saying, "Lie with me." But leaving the cloak in her hand, he escaped and ran outside. When she saw that he had left his cloak in her hand, and as he escaped outside, she cried out to her household servants and said, "Look, my husband has brought us a Hebrew man to mock us. He came in here to lie with me, but I cried out loudly. When he heard me scream, he left his cloak beside me and escaped and ran outside." She kept the cloak with her until his master came home. Then she told him the same story. "The Hebrew slave whom you brought us came to me to amuse himself at my expense. But when I screamed, he left his cloak beside me and escaped outside." When the master heard his wife's story, in which she reported, "Thus and so your servant did to me," he became enraged. Joseph's master seized him and put him into the jail where the king's prisoners were confined. And there he sat, in jail. But the Lord was with Joseph, and showed him kindness by making the chief jailer well disposed toward him. The chief jailer put Joseph in charge of all the prisoners in the jail. Everything that had to be done there, he was the one to do it. The chief jailer did not have to look after anything that was in Joseph's charge, since the Lord was with him and was bringing success to whatever he was doing. End of 39. Chapter 40. The Dreams Interpreted. Sometime afterward, the royal cupbearer and baker offended their lord, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was angry with his two officials, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and he put them in custody in the house of the chief steward, the same jail where Joseph was confined. The chief steward assigned Joseph to them, and he became their attendant. After they had been in custody for some time, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were confined in the jail, both had dreams on the same night, each his own dream, and each dream with its own meaning. When Joseph came to them in the morning, he saw that they looked disturbed. So he asked Pharaoh's officials who were with him in custody in his master's house, "Why do you look so troubled today?" They answered him, "We've had dreams, but there is no one to interpret them." Joseph said to them, "Do interpretations not come from God? Please, tell me the dreams." Then the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream. "In my dream," he said, "I saw a vine in front of me, and on the vine were 3 branches. It had barely budded when its blossoms came out, and its clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, so I took the grapes, pressed them out into his cup, and put it in Pharaoh's hand." Joseph said to him, "This is its interpretation. The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will single you out and restore you to your post. You will be handing Pharaoh his cup as you formerly did when you were his cupbearer. Only think of me when all is well with you, and please do me the great favor of mentioning me to Pharaoh to get me out of this place. The truth is that I was kidnapped from the land of the Hebrews, and have not done anything here that they should have put me into a dungeon." When the chief baker saw that Joseph had given a favorable interpretation, he said to him, "I too had a dream. In it I had 3 bread baskets on my head, and the top one were all kinds of bakery products for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating them out of the basket on my head." Joseph said to him in reply, "This is its interpretation. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will single you out and impale you on a stake, and the birds will be eating your flesh." And so on the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, when he gave a banquet to all his servants, he singled out the chief cupbearer and the chief baker in the midst of his servants. He restored the chief cupbearer to his office, so that he again handed the cup to Pharaoh. But the chief baker he impaled, just as Joseph had told him in his interpretation. Yet the chief cupbearer did not think of Joseph. He forgot him. End of 40. Chapter 41, Pharaoh's Dream. After a lapse of 2 years, Pharaoh had a dream. He was standing by the Nile, when up out of the Nile came 7 cows, fine-looking and fat. They grazed in the reed grass. Behind them, 7 other cows, poor-looking and gaunt, came up out of the Nile, and standing on the bank of the Nile beside the others, the poor-looking gaunt cows devoured the 7 fine-looking fat cows. Then Pharaoh woke up. He fell asleep again and had another dream. He saw 7 ears of grain, fat and healthy, growing on a single stalk. Behind them sprouted 7 ears of grain, thin and scorched by the east wind. And the thin ears swallowed up the 7 fat, healthy ears. Then Pharaoh woke up. It was a dream. Next morning, his mind was agitated. So Pharaoh had all the magicians and the sages of Egypt summoned, and recounted his dream to them. But there was no one to interpret it for him. Then the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, "Now I remember my negligence. Once, when Pharaoh was angry with his servants, he put me and the chief baker in custody in the house of the chief steward. Later, we both had dreams on the same night, and each of our dreams had its own meaning. There was a Hebrew youth with us, a slave of the chief steward, and when we told him our dreams, he interpreted them for us and explained for each of us the meaning of his dream. Things turned out just as he had told us. I was restored to my post, but the other man was impaled. Pharaoh therefore had Joseph summoned, and they hurriedly brought him from the dungeon. After he shaved and changed his clothes, he came to Pharaoh. Pharaoh then said to Joseph, "I had a dream, but there was no one to interpret it. But I hear it said of you, if he hears a dream, he can interpret it." "It is not I," replied Joseph to Pharaoh, "but God who will speak for the well-being of Pharaoh." Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "In my dream, I was standing on the bank of the Nile, when up from the Nile came 7 cows, fat and well-formed. They grazed in the reed grass. Behind them came 7 other cows, scrawny, most ill-formed, and gaunt. Never have I seen such bad specimens as these in all of the land of Egypt. The gaunt, bad cows devoured the first 7 fat cows, but when they had consumed them, no one could tell that they had done so, because they looked just as bad as before. Then I woke up. In another dream, I saw 7 ears of grain, full and healthy, growing on a single stalk. Behind them sprouted 7 ears of grain, shriveled and thin and scorched by the east wind, and the 7 thin ears swallowed up the 7 healthy ears. I have spoken to the magicians, but there is no one to explain it to me." Joseph said to Pharaoh, "Pharaoh's dreams have the same meaning. God has made known to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 healthy cows are 7 years, and the 7 healthy ears are 7 years, the same in each dream. The 7 thin bad cows that came up after them are 7 years, as are the 7 thin ears scorched by the east wind. They are 7 years of famine. Things are just as I told Pharaoh. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. 7 years of great abundance are now coming throughout the land of Egypt, but 7 years of famine will rise up after them, when all the abundance will be forgotten in the land of Egypt. When the famine has exhausted the land, no trace of the abundance will be found in the land, because of the famine that follows it, for it will be very severe. That Pharaoh had the same dream twice means that the matter has been confirmed by God, and that God will soon bring it about. Therefore, let Pharaoh seek out a discerning and wise man, and put him in charge of the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh act and appoint overseers for the land, to organize it during the 7 years of abundance. They should collect all the food of these coming good years, gathering the grain under Pharaoh's authority, for food in the cities, and they should guard it. This food will serve as a reserve for the country against the 7 years of famine that will occur in the land of Egypt, so that the land may not perish in the famine." The advice pleased Pharaoh and all his servants. "Could we find another like him?" Pharaoh asked his servants, "a man so endowed with the Spirit of God." So Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Since God has made all this known to you, there is no one as discerning and wise as you are. You shall be in charge of my household, and all my people will obey your command. Only in respect to the throne will I outrank you." Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Look, I put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt." With that, Pharaoh took off his signet ring and put it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in robes of fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck. He then had him ride in a second chariot, and they shouted, "Abrek!" before him. Thus was Joseph installed over the whole land of Egypt. "I am Pharaoh," he told Joseph, "but without your approval, no one shall lift hand or foot in all the land of Egypt." Pharaoh also bestowed the name of Zaphanath-Paneah on Joseph, and he gave him in marriage Asenath, the daughter of Potiphera, priest of Heliopolis. And Joseph went out over the land of Egypt. Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. After Joseph left Pharaoh, he went throughout the land of Egypt. During the 7 years of plenty, when the land produced abundant crops, he collected all the food of these years of plenty that the land of Egypt was enjoying and stored it in the cities, placing in each city the crops of the fields around it. Joseph collected grain, like the sands of the sea, so much so that at last he stopped measuring it, for it was beyond measure. Before the famine years set in, Joseph became the father of 2 sons, born to him by Asenath, daughter of Potiphera, priest of Heliopolis. Joseph named his firstborn Manasseh, saying, "God has made me forget entirely my troubles and my father's house." And the second he named Ephraim, meaning, "God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction." When the 7 years of abundance enjoyed by the land of Egypt came to an end, the 7 years of famine set in, just as Joseph had said. Although there was famine in all the other countries, food was available throughout the land of Egypt. When all the land of Egypt became hungry, and the people cried out to Pharaoh for food, Pharaoh said to all the Egyptians, "Go to Joseph and do whatever he tells you." When the famine had spread throughout the land, Joseph opened all the cities that had grain and rationed it to the Egyptians, since the famine had gripped the land of Egypt. Indeed, the whole world came to Egypt to Joseph to buy grain, for famine had gripped the world. It's the end of chapter 41. Chapter 42, the brothers' first journey to Egypt. When Jacob learned that grain rations were for sale in Egypt, he said to his sons, "Why do you keep looking at one another?" He went on, "I hear that grain is for sale in Egypt. Go down there and buy some for us, that we may stay alive and not die." So 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to buy grain from Egypt. But Jacob did not send Joseph's brother Benjamin with his brothers, for he thought some disaster might befall him. And so the sons of Israel were among those who came to buy grain, since there was famine in the land of Canaan. Joseph, as governor of the country, was the one who sold grain to the people of the land. When Joseph's brothers came, they bowed down to him with their faces to the ground. He recognized them as soon as he saw them, but he concealed his own identity from them and spoke harshly to them. "Where do you come from?" he asked them. They answered, "From the land of Canaan, to buy food." When Joseph recognized his brothers, although they did not recognize him, he was reminded of the dreams he had about them. He said to them, "You are spies. You've come to see the weak points of the land." "No, my lord," they replied. "On the contrary, your servants have come to buy food. All of us are the sons of the same man. We are honest men. Your servants have never been spies." But he answered them, "Not so. It is the weak points of the land that you have come to see." "We, your servants," they said, "are 12 brothers, sons of a certain man in Canaan, but the youngest one is at present with our father, and the other one is no more." "It is just as I said," Joseph persisted. "You are spies. This is how you shall be tested. I swear by the life of Pharaoh that you shall not leave here unless your youngest brother comes here. So send one of your number to get your brother, while the rest of you stay here under arrest. Thus will your words be tested for their truth. If they are untrue, as Pharaoh lives, you are spies." With that, he locked them up in the guardhouse for 3 days. On the 3rd day, Joseph said to them, "Do this, and you shall live, for I am a God-fearing man. If you are honest men, let one of your brothers be confined in this prison, While the rest of you go and take home grain for your starving families. But you must bring me your youngest brother. Your words will thus be verified, and you will not die." To this they agreed. To one another, however, they said, "Truly, we are being punished because of our brother. We saw the anguish of his heart when he pleaded with us, yet we would not listen. That is why this anguish has now come upon us." Then Reuben responded, "Did I not tell you? Do no wrong to the boy? But you would not listen. Now comes the reckoning for his blood." They did not know, of course, that Joseph understood what they said, since he spoke with them through an interpreter. But turning away from them, he wept. When he was able to speak to them again, he took Simeon from among them and bound him before their eyes. Then Joseph gave orders to have their containers filled with grain, their money replaced in each one's sack, and provisions given them for their journey. After this had been done for them, they loaded their donkeys with the grain and departed. At the night encampment, when one of them opened his bag to give his donkey some fodder, he saw his money there in the mouth of his bag. He cried out to his brothers, "My money has been returned. Here it is in my bag." At that, their hearts sank. Trembling, they asked one another, "What is this that God has done to us?" When they got back to their father Jacob in the land of Canaan, they told him all that had happened to them. "The man who is lord of the land," they said, "spoke to us harshly and put us in custody on the grounds that we were spying on the land. But we said to him, 'We are honest men. We've never been spies. We are 12 brothers, sons of the same father, but one is no more, and the youngest one is now with our father in the land of Canaan.' And the man who is lord of the land said to us, 'This is how I will know if you are honest men. Leave one of your brothers with me, then take grain for your starving families and go. When you bring me your youngest brother, I know that you are not spies, but honest men. I will restore your brother to you, and you may move about freely in the land.' When they were emptying their sacks, there in each one's sack was his money bag. At the sight of their money bags, they and their father were afraid. Their father Jacob said to them, 'Must you make me childless? Joseph is no more, Simeon is no more, and now you would take Benjamin away? All these things have happened to me.' Then Reuben told his father, 'You may kill my own 2 sons if I do not return him to you. Put him in my care, and I will bring him back to you.' But Jacob replied, 'My son shall not go down with you. Now that his brother is dead, he is the only one left. If some disaster should befall him on the journey you must make, you would send my white head down to Sheol in grief.'" Okay. Chapter 43. The second journey to Egypt. Now the famine in the land grew severe. So when they had used up all the grain they had brought from Egypt, their father said to them, "Go back and buy us a little more food." But Judah replied, "The man strictly warned us, 'You shall not see me unless your brother is with you.' If you are willing to let our brother go with us, we will go down to buy food for you. But if you're not willing, we will not go down, because the man told us, 'You shall not see me unless your brother is with you.' Israel demanded, 'Why did you bring this trouble on me by telling the man that you had another brother?' They answered, 'The man kept asking about us and our family. Is your father still living? Do you have another brother?' We answered him accordingly. How could we know that he would say, 'Bring your brother down here'?" Then Judah urged his father Israel, "Let the boy go with me, that we may be off and be on our way, if you and we and our children are to keep from starving to death. I myself will serve as a guarantee for him. You can hold me responsible for him. If I fail to bring him back and set him before you, I will bear the blame before you forever." Had we not delayed, we could have been there and back twice by now. Israel their father then told them, "If it must be so, then do this. Put some of the land's best products in your baggage and take them down to the man as gifts, some balm and honey, gum and resin, and pistachios and almonds. Also, take double the money along, for you must return the amount that was put back in the mouths of your bags. It may have been a mistake. Take your brother too, and be off on your way back to the man. May God Almighty grant you mercy in the presence of the man, so that he may let your other brother go, as well as Benjamin. As for me, if I am to suffer bereavement, I shall suffer it." So the men took those gifts and double the money and Benjamin. They made their way down to Egypt and presented themselves before Joseph. When Joseph saw them and Benjamin, he told the steward, "Take the men into the house and have an animal slaughtered and prepared, for they are to dine with me at noon." Doing as Joseph had ordered, the steward conducted the men to Joseph's house, but they became apprehensive when they were led to his house. It must be, they thought, on account of the money put back in our bags the first time, that we are taken inside, in order to attack us and take our donkeys and seize us as slaves. So they went up to Joseph's steward and talked to him at the entrance of the house. If you please, sir, they said, we came down here once before to buy food, but when we arrived at a night's encampment and opened our bags, there was each man's money in the mouth of his bag, our money in the full amount. We have now brought it back. We have brought other money to buy food. We do not know who put our money in our bags. He replied, calm down, do not fear. Your God and the God of your father must have put your treasure in the bags for you. As for your money, I received it. With that, he led Simeon out to them. The steward then brought the men inside Joseph's house. He gave them water to wash their feet and gave fodder to their donkeys. Then they set out their gifts to await Joseph's arrival at noon, for they had heard that they were to dine there. When Joseph came home, they presented him with the gifts they had brought inside, while they bowed down before him to the ground. After inquiring how they were, he asked them, and how is your aged father of whom you spoke? Is he still alive? Your servant our father is still alive and doing well, they said, as they knelt and bowed down. Then Joseph looked up and saw Benjamin, his brother, the son of his mother. He asked, is this your youngest brother, of whom you told me? Then he said to him, may God be gracious to you, my son. With that, Joseph hurried out, for he was so overcome with affection for his brother that he was on the verge of tears. So he went into a private room and wept there. After washing his face, he reappeared, and now, having collected himself, gave the order, serve the meal. It was served separately to him, to the brothers, and to the Egyptians who partook of his board. Egyptians may not eat with Hebrews, that is abhorrent to them. When they were seated before him according to their age, from the oldest to the youngest, they looked at one another in amazement, and his portions were brought to them from Joseph's table. Benjamin's portion was 5 times as large as anyone else's. So they drank freely and made merry with him. End of chapter 43. Chapter 44. Final test. Then Joseph commanded his steward, fill the men's bags with as much food as they can carry, and put each man's money in the mouth of his bag. In the mouth of the youngest one's bag, put also my silver goblet, together with the money for his grain. The steward did just as Joseph said. At daybreak, the men and their donkeys were sent off. They had not gone far out of the city when Joseph said to his steward, go out at once after the men. When you overtake them, say to them, why did you repay good with evil? Why did you steal my silver goblet? Is it not the very one from which my master drinks and which he uses for divination? What you have done is wrong. When the steward overtook them and repeated these words to them, they said to him, why does my lord say such things? Far be it from your servants to do such a thing. We've even brought back to you from the land of Canaan the money that we found in the mouths of our bags. How could we steal silver or gold from your master's house? If any of your servants is found to have the goblet, he shall die. And as for the rest of us, we shall become my lord's slaves. But he replied, now what you propose is fair enough, but only the one who is found to have it shall become my slave, and the rest of you can go free. Then each of them quickly lowered his bag to the ground and opened it. And when a search was made, starting with the oldest and ending with the youngest, the goblet turned up in Benjamin's bag. At this, they tore their garments. Then when each man had loaded his donkey again, they returned to the city. When Judah and his brothers entered Joseph's house, he was still there, so they flung themselves on the ground before him. How could you do such a thing? Joseph asked them. Did you not know that such a man as I could discern by divination what happened? Judah replied, what can we say to my lord? How can we plead or how to try to prove our innocence? God has uncovered your servant's guilt. Here we are then, the slaves of my lord, the rest of us no less than the one in whose possession the goblet was found. Joseph said, far be it from me to act thus. Only the one in whose possession the goblet was found shall become my slave. The rest of you may go back unharmed to your father. Judah then stepped up to him and said, I beg you, my lord, let your servant appeal to my lord, and do not become angry with your servant, for you are the equal of Pharaoh. My lord asked his servants, have you a father or another brother? So he said to my lord, we have an aged father and a younger brother, the child of his old age. This one's full brother is dead, and since he is the only one by his mother who is left, his father is devoted to him. Then you told your servants, Bring him down to me, that I might see him." We replied to my lord, "The boy cannot leave his father. His father would die if he left him. But you told your servants, 'Unless your youngest brother comes down with you, you shall not see me again.' When we returned to your servant, my father, we reported to him the words of my lord. Later, our father said, 'Go back and buy some food for us.' So we reminded him, 'We cannot go down there. Only if our youngest brother is with us can we go. For we may not see the man if our youngest brother is not with us.' Then your servant my father said to us, 'As you know, my wife bore me 2 sons. One of them, however, has gone away from me.' And I said, 'He must have been torn to pieces by wild beasts. I have not seen him since. If you take this one away from me too, and a disaster befalls him, you will send my white head down to Sheol in grief. So now, if the boy is not with us when I go back to your servant my father, whose very life is bound up with us, he will die as soon as he sees that the boy is missing. And your servants will thus send the white head of your servant our father down to Sheol in grief. Besides, I, your servant, have guaranteed the boy's safety for my father by saying, 'If I fail to bring him back to you, father, I will bear the blame before you forever.' So now, let me, your servant, remain in place of the boy, so as the slave of my lord, and let the boy go back with his brothers. How could I go back to my father if the boy were not with me? I could not bear to see the anguish that would overcome my father." End of chapter 44. Chapter 45, the truth revealed. Joseph could no longer restrain himself in the presence of all of his attendants. So he cried out, "Have everyone withdraw from me." So no one attended him when he made himself known to his brothers. But his sobs were so loud that the Egyptians heard him. And so the news reached Pharaoh's house. "I am Joseph," he said to his brothers. "Is my father still alive?" But his brothers could give him no answer. So dumbfounded they were at him. "Come closer to me," Joseph told his brothers. When they had done so, he said, "I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. But now do not be distressed, and do not be angry with yourselves for having sold me here. It was really for the sake of saving lives that God sent me here ahead of you. The famine has been in the land for 2 years now, and for 5 more years cultivation will yield no harvest. God, therefore, sent me on ahead of you to ensure for you a remnant on earth, and to save your lives in an extraordinary deliverance. So it was not really you, but God who had me come here, and he has made me a father to Pharaoh, lord of all of his household, and ruler over the whole land of Egypt. Hurry back then to my father, and tell him, 'Thus says your son Joseph, God has made me lord of all Egypt. Come down to me without delay. You can settle in the region of Goshen, where you will be near me, you and your children and your children's children, your flocks and herds, and everything that you own. I will provide for you there in the 5 years of famine that lie ahead, so that you and your household and all that are yours will not suffer want. Surely you can see for yourselves, and Benjamin can see for himself, that it is I who am speaking to you. Tell my father all about my high position in Egypt and all that you have seen, but hurry and bring my father down here.' Then he threw his arms around his brother Benjamin and wept on his shoulder. Joseph then kissed all his brothers and wept over them. And only then were his brothers able to talk with him. The news reached Pharaoh's house. Joseph's brothers have come. Pharaoh and his officials were pleased. So Pharaoh told Joseph, 'Say to your brothers, this is what you shall do. Load up your animals and go without delay to the land of Canaan. There, get your father and your households, and then come to me. I will assign you the best land in Egypt, where you will live off the fat of the land.' Instruct them further, 'Do this. Take wagons from the land of Egypt for your children and your wives, and bring your father back here. Do not be concerned about your belongings, for the best in the whole land of Egypt shall be yours.' The sons of Israel acted accordingly. Joseph gave them the wagons, as Pharaoh had ordered, and he supplied them with provisions for the journey. He also gave to each of them a set of clothes, but to Benjamin he gave 300 shekels of silver and 5 sets of clothes. Moreover, what he sent to his father was 10 donkeys loaded with the finest products of Egypt, and another 10 loaded with grain and bread and provisions for his father's journey. As he sent his brothers on their way, he told them, 'Do not quarrel on the way.' So they went up from Egypt and came to the land of Canaan, to their father Jacob. When they told him, 'Joseph is still alive,' In fact, it is he who is governing all the land of Egypt. He was unmoved, for he did not believe them. But when they recounted to him all that Joseph had told them, and when he saw the wagons that Joseph had sent to transport him, the spirit of the father Jacob came to life. Enough, Israel said. My son Joseph is alive. I must go and see him before I die. Okay, that was another 10 chapters. There's technically a little bit more to the story, but it's just kind of like end notes. So I'm going to stop it there for tonight, and then I'll finish it next time. So that's the end of chapter 45. So that was 36 to 45. I hope you liked this one, Lexi. It was another 45-minute video.